Hello, everyone. It's Sunday once again, and it's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK, which is 9 o'clock in the evening in Manila. Welcome to a rock and rolling episode of Ask the Drummer. I mean, this is really new for me because most of the guests I had on Ask the Drummer, they're mainly sort of like indie bands or new wave bands or alternative sort of like music and stuff. But this is the first time that we're actually going to have like this is rock and roll and or oh, this is Mercy Beats. So I'm really excited about it. So let's welcome my dear friends. It's Tony O'Keefe of the Shakers.
Hello,
Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, like I said, I mean, this is actually the first time that we're going to be talking about, like music from the 60s, like Mercy Beat and stuff.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
I mean, you didn't originally sort of like just come out doing Mercy Beat. In the 80s, you've got other bands as well doing sort of like, I think, new wave or pop or
mm,
whatever. But we'll talk about that later on.
okay.
So, but for now, so how's your Easter Sunday so far?
It's been quiet so far. I've got a busy one coming up later, so just get myself ready for that. So I might just have a
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because I was sort of like thinking when you said that you do the Shakers gig at the Cavern every Sunday, that maybe it's not really a good time for you to sort of like go and ask the drummer because I only do it on a Sunday. But
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you've given us the time to do it before you do your show um
the
at the
cabin.
Cavern.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I've got to say, there's actually a connection between you and my guest last week, Simon Finley of Echo and the Bunnyman.
All right.
Um, yeah, because that day that I met you at the Cavern and where I saw the Shakers, I was supposed to go and see him and the mutual friend because our mutual friend so like arranged this meeting. We're supposed to be going to the dispensary. It was like a pub near
I know
I
it.
think
Yeah.
the yeah 81 Renshaw. But then my friend said to me that he couldn't do it because he had COVID and stuff. So I said, well, I can't really just go to the dispensary and look for the drummer
Hmm.
and look for the drummer of Echo and the Bunnyman. So I thought, so I thought it's Liverpool. There's always something happening in Liverpool
Yeah. Mm.
any given day of the week. And luckily, that day it was the International Beatles.
That's right. Yeah, it was a busy week for us. That.
Yeah, it was really busy. So I thought, well, I might as well just go to the Cavern. And also, a band called Uberfuse, I found out that they were playing at the time. So I went to see them. And then I was actually going to leave and go somewhere else after Uberfuse. But then I heard your band. I heard the Shakers playing on my way out. And I thought, oh my God, they're really good. so, so, so I went round to sort of like the side because it was so busy.
Yeah.
It was really busy that time. But there's a bit of space sort of like round the side. And that's where I saw you.
Well, it is busy Beatle week anyway, but when we do the Sundays, it's most of the time it's quite busy, and it does have that atmosphere, which is great to see with the music that we play because it's not everybody knows it really, and the way we do it is like the way it was done then, which was the whole point of the band really. Uh,
Yeah.
it's you get a lot of people who just want to hear Hey Jude and things like that, and we don't do that. We don't do anything past 1964 really. So and we do it
Yeah.
the rock and roll style. It was originally.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't just do the Beatles either. I mean, you do other sort of like
We're not.
bands.
We're not a. Yeah, we're not a Beatles tribute band. We're a group
Yeah.
that plays Mersey beats, and
Mercy,
we do
yeah.
the hits of Jerry and Billy J and the Searchers, Mersey beats, and all that. We do a lot
Yeah.
of the Beatles stuff, but we do a lot of the songs that were played or recorded by the other groups in Liverpool, by all the groups in Liverpool. Band, like songs like Some Other Guy, Slow Down, things like that. And a lot of the groups did those songs, not just the Beatles, but we do the ones that if you walked into the cabin in 1962, 63, you will hear what we play. Basically, that's the sort of essence of what we do. And the other thing is every song in our show and in the theatre show is only by a Liverpool artist. We don't do anything outside of Liverpool, so it's completely unique in that respect.
Yeah. It's sort of like authentic, isn't it? So like, yeah. Well, I was so like really glad because I hanged around for a bit because hoping that I could get to meet the band and everything, especially yourself. So, and luckily you did, you came out and I got the set list and also you gave me one of those sort of like promo postcards.
Got new ones now.
Yeah, so I was really lucky. So I was all like thinking, God, that was really meant to be. Because even though I didn't get a chance to meet, Simon Finley of Echo and the Bunnymen, I actually got to meet you, and then you're on the show. So that's like,
thank you.
Yeah, so like, things happen for a reason. That's what I always say. Things happen for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right.
Yeah. So, anyways, before we sort of like start the proper sort of like interview, I want to say hello to Trevor Palmer. He said hi, Anne and Tony. So, hello, Trevor. Thanks for joining us. So, welcome to Ask the Drummer. Episode 36 is all about you, Tony O'Keefe. So we're gonna start from the very beginning, which is like you told me before you came on before we went on live that you were actually born in the city centre of Liverpool.
That's right.
Born and bred in Liverpool.
Well, there's a thing that says if you're a true Scouse, you were born within a mile of the Liber building, which I was. I was born. I grew up in the city centre, which is just where the museum and the St George's Hall is, just not far from a 5-minute walk from there. And I was born in the same hospital as John Lennon, Oxford Street. And so, we're 5 minutes from everything in town, including the cabin at the time when I was a kid. And we had all the Merseybeat sort of records in the house. So I grew up listening to a lot of rock and roll and Merseybeat and stuff like that, So I was aware of all that from when I was a kid, because it was all happening at the time when I was small, But it stayed with me that, all through all the different types of music I played over the years.
Yeah.
I always loved that as well, regardless. And that's why what I'm doing now, I'm passionate about it because I've known it all my life, really.
Yeah, but when you were sort of like a teenager, it's a different thing altogether. Because I know that I've actually read quite a lot about Liverpool music and stuff. Like in the 80s, or sort of like maybe late 70s, early 80s, musicians or bands, they tend to sort of like stayed away from the sort of like the Beatles connection. They wanted to be different.
Yeah, well, the thing in Liverpool then, there was no cabin. The cabin was gone in 73. And the new groups that came up through the new wave punk thing, sort of, they distanced themselves from that. And quite rightly, it needed to be sort of changed, the landscape. And they were great bands, that came out of that late 70s. Eric's scene was brilliant. And while I loved all that, I still liked the Merseybeat stuff, and as I say, I've liked that all through the different types of music I played, and I think a lot of the groups then probably liked it, but they couldn't say that because of the punk thing of year zero.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, and I do believe that a lot of those guys still like the Beatles. I mean, it's but the thing was, it wasn't fashionable at the time, and the only thing in Matthew Street, even late 70s, early 80s, was the Cabin Mecca Museum, which I never went to because I didn't know about it at the time. But that was the only Beatle thing in the city, which is hard to believe now when it's wall to wall Beatles in a lot of cases. But no, those groups needed to move away, and they needed to get their own identity. And I think that was the second coming of Merseybeat, if you want to call it that. But there was some amazing bands come out of that,
Yeah, I think it's sort of like everybody loves the Beatles. It's like it's not just in sort of like Liverpool, but all over the world. And sometimes you can't believe someone when they said that they don't like the Beatles at all, because there must be at least one or 5 songs.
When I started playing, which
Jesus.
was around 1980, I'd go to venues, and I've said this quite a few times, you know, and they'd say, "Don't play any Beatles, lads. You know, that's all gone that now." And they didn't want to hear it, and they were, you know. Unfortunately, the thing was, you know, John Lennon, when he got killed, it did kickstart the industry for the Beatles. People wanted to know about them, and sadly, it took that to do it. But you know,
Yeah,
really, they weren't as popular as you think they were. You know, especially
yeah,
Liverpool. You know, at the time, it's hard to
yeah.
believe, but I was there, and I know, you know,
Um,
what it
were
was like.
you part of the Eric scene?
I was a bit too young for that. I did try to go a couple of times, but I just got turned away. They did do a junior matinee thing, which I never went to. But yeah, I liked all the group. A lot of my favourite groups were playing there, and I couldn't go and see them because I was too young. Um,
Oh, right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
but yeah, you know, I loved the scene. And years later, in fact, I ended up doing a few gigs for Roger Eagle, who run Enix, and he opened a club in town called Adams, and he had a lot of sort of R&B acts. I was playing a lot of R&B at the time, so that's my thing. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
ended up playing with some of my heroes, and you know, with Roger Hill promoting the gigs, Roger Eagle, sorry,
Roger Eagle, yeah,
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 the gigs. So it was nice to have done some gigs with him before he died. You know, to met the guy.
yeah.
Hell of a knowledge
Um,
of music, you know.
yeah. Just want to say, well, my sound tech, well, it's just my husband actually. He said that sound and vision both okay, so that's good to hear. Um, and Vincent Briffaut, I think Briffaut, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he said hi. I think he lives in France or something.
All right.
And yeah, and Trevor said that he was too young for the Beatles live, but he did see the Rottles.
I
The
don't
Rottles,
know. Yeah.
yeah, a few times. So anyway, so what got you into drumming? Um,
I was into guitars. I had an acoustic guitar from when I was about 9, and I just wasn't getting very far with it. And Ian McNabb, who was my school friend, he was taking guitar lessons, and we had a couple in school. But then he had some private ones, and he just came on leaps and bounds, and I just wasn't getting any further with it. And I went to a gig, one of my first gigs, and watched. I just saw the drummers, and something about the drums just came out at me then, and from that point I was obsessed with them, you know. But I couldn't afford
what
it.
was it? Whose band was it? Was it?
The first group I went to see live when I was a kid was Mud, believe it or not. Yeah, they were having the hits in the 70s, and
Yeah, yeah.
you know, Dave Mount was a great drummer, and they were really entertaining live. And I just thought, wow, look, you know, something about the drums. Then I went to see Slade, Don Powell, who I've met ever
Wow.
since, and
Yeah.
I just got obsessed with them, you know. But I had to wait a few years before I could get a kit, and in the meantime, I just watched everything, watched all the drummers, you know, got a handle on how they played, and so when I actually got a kit, I could play it straight away because I knew what to do. I just didn't know how I felt, you know, that was the thing. But I picked it up
Yeah.
quickly that by that point.
So did you
So
not have any?
6 months, you know.
Yeah, did you not go for drumming lessons at all, or just?
Then no, I went late after I'd been playing for about 8 years. I took some lessons just to sharpen up a few bits of technique, but I didn't take them for that long, maybe 6 months or something, you know. I'm a rock and
Yeah,
roll drummer at the end of the day, and I'm not going to be doing sort of reading, you know, charts and stuff like that. So I didn't
yeah,
spend too much time trying to learn all that. But I got, you know, I can pick up a lot of things I'm better by ear than I am reading, so I pick up things quite quickly by ear.
right.
Yeah, that's my way of doing things.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you now about the bands that you were that you played in, and what was the first band that you actually?
I joined, well, I advertised in Hesse's for an R&B band because I was really into R&B, like the Essex sort of Dr. Feelgood type R&B, hard rock and roll type stuff. And
Yeah.
this group said, well, we do some rock and roll, so that'll do. So I joined a working band, if you like, and you were playing clubs and pubs and all that. So I did that for a while, and then I joined a proper R&B band, and we made a bit of a name for ourselves on the local circuit. We had a CD, no CD, a cassette.
All
We
right.
that, and that sold really well. We got a little bit of
Yeah.
press and stuff. Um,
What's the band called?
that was called The Interns.
The Intent, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was named after, as Dr. Feelgood had taken the name of Dr. Feelgood off Piano Red. His backing band of The Interns, so I took The Interns. There was a '60s group called that, so I didn't know that at the time. And
Yeah.
then yeah, and then we did that for a while, and then I got into the '80s pop thing, and I started doing '80 original music, '80s pop. But I still had a little R&B band on the side. We used to go down to London and play at Dingwalls with a lot of my heroes, like the Pirates and Wilco Johnson and people like that. And we played in London quite a bit. So I was doing that
Yeah.
on the side as well as playing like the sort of more '80s chart pop stuff with a band
Yeah.
Toy Taboo. We had the single out and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna ask because I looked it up on Discogs. There's Toy Taboo, and then there's a single called "Nothing for Love."
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, and it says that the category is like indie rock. Or is
Yeah,
it
it's more
also
sort of '80s pop synthesizer, some Durrani.
like new wave
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, yeah. But it was just our version of what was going on at the time.
Yeah,
We did okay, and then I sort of wanted to do. I got a bit disillusioned with the music scene in England, and I was in America in LA, and I heard some of the music that was going on, and it was still rock and roll, and the kids were loving it, and I was like, well, why isn't this happening in England? It's all this sort of right said Fred or whatever, it's the type stuff.
oh,
And anyway, I come back and I said, I've got to play some rock and roll. So I put the Chain Gang together then to play rock and roll. No
yeah,
one was doing it. So I wanted to do it. So I recruited a couple of guys and we got on
yeah,
with management and ended up touring with a lot of bands and we had the records out and stuff. And that lasted for a couple of years. And it's
yeah.
okay.
I tried looking for Toy Taboo's "Nothing for Love" because I'm really interested, especially if it's sort of like sounding new wave or synth pop or something.
Mm.
But it's not on YouTube, which is like, oh my god! Sometimes you
No.
think, yeah, sometimes you
I'll
think
send you a
everything.
copy. I've still got some.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah, I'd love to hear that "Nothing for Love" single. But before we actually talk about the Chain Gang,
Mm.
there was another band that I don't know if this is the right one, but it's called Bad to the Bone.
Yeah, well, as I said
Bad?
before, yeah, the Interns was a four-piece. And then I
Yeah.
got back together with two of the lads, and we were a trio. And so we used to play in London quite a bit, Bad to the Bone. So it was more or less the same band, minus one of the guys.
Oh, right.
That was the
'Cause
band that was playing in London quite a bit.
yeah, because there's a George Thorogood song
That's
that's a
right.
really
Yeah,
popular Bad to the Bone.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's where we got it from, and it was all that type of R&B. That's what I love.
but that didn't last long. Was
It
it?
was about a year or two. Yeah, it was just an
Yeah.
occasional thing. I'd Soy Taboo going at the time, so that was my main band. But we used to do, I say, just nip down to London, do a few gigs, and come back now and again. So it was great to keep my hand in doing that because that's what I really love.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about the Chain Gang because this is really exciting for me. Because when I was sort of like googling the Chain Gang, I went on Discogs and you've actually released a couple of records
Mm.
under the Chain Gang. And
Yeah,
the most exciting thing I found about these records are produced by Ian McNabb.
yeah.
It's just for me, it's like, oh my god.
Well, we as I say, we're old friends anyway, and his management of the Icicle Works took us on. And we used to tour with the Icicle Works in the late '80s, and we ended up playing with a lot of other bands like, I say, then Jericho, The Primitives, Motorhead, Girls' School, you know,
Wow.
and did a lot of these London touring all around the country. And Ian produced our EP. But when we were out of the studio and he was obviously mixing or whatever, he'd add sneaky little bits to it. He'd put some backing vocals on or a little bit of slide guitar or something. So yeah, oh, what's that on? Oh, just put them on. So he's actually on it as well as producing it as well.
Yeah. That's great. See, that's another thing now.
And we got it was a four track version that we did on the Icicle Works original label, which was
Is it Beggars Back?
no, not Beggars. No, it was the one that they did their first single Nirvana on, Troll Kitchen.
Oh, right, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and then we got signed by Chapel Music, and they put the EP out as a 3-tracker. So there's 2 versions of it, and then we recorded an album, but then the company got taken over by Warner's, and we got dropped along with a lot of other artists at the time. So sadly, that never came out, you know.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
But the Chain Gang was
that's
sort of
right.
like playing live, and absolutely amazing. I was sort of like trying to look for you because you're so young. It's
Where
only
we
a
all?
and it's like, but
Yeah,
the
long
sound
time
is
ago.
yeah, it's a brilliant, brilliant sound. And did you ever play with Ian McNabb? So like,
Well, he's on those videos. He got up with us, and we did Hollow Horse, and we did Fight Be a Right to Party with him on that actual gig.
oh really? I only saw a couple of like videos or but only the Chain Gang and not with Ian McNabb. I need to
No,
sort of
he got up as a guest. He was there because we were actually on tour. We were starting the ICs tour the next day in Huddersfield after
yeah.
that gig. That was a Maybank Holiday Monday. That was in '87.
Oh
Mm. And
wow.
that was a regular gig in Bootle, the Firehouse. You know, a lot of bands used to play there. So we did that as a warm up for the tour.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I love Ian McNabb. I'm actually gonna go and see him next week in
Oh, cool.
Preston.
Say hello to him.
I will do. I'm really looking forward to it. So, like, right. So, in the 80s, you did all these sort of like bands, but then I found out that your next band wasn't actually until the early 2000s. So, I asked you this before we went on live. So, what happened in the 90s? So,
Well,
from
again, the music scene changed. It got a lot of that sort of dancey thing, which is not my thing. The Manchester stuff and Stone Roses, and not my thing. A lot of groups and artists changed into that. I just got a bit. That's not for me. I did play. I was playing a lot of covers and some original indie stuff, country flavored indie Americana stuff with a couple of
yeah,
bands, and played a lot of stuff in the '90s. But they were sort of under the radar a bit. And then I went to drama school and did a little bit of acting, and I ended up doing a lot of acting work in the '90s as well. So that's string to me bow type of thing, and something I enjoyed and still do. And so
yeah,
I did that. I didn't do anything of note in the '90s in terms of music, but I was still writing songs. I was still performing them. You know, doing some covers as well. And then
yeah,
in the early 2000s, I started playing with Mel C's mother in her group. Did a few little tours with them, and
Mel C, the Spice Girls.
yeah, she played with us a few times and did some studio work, and she was backing, you know, stuff like Nice Girl, you know, as is a mum.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, lovely, great band, you know, and it was really enjoyable to do at the time. And then we
Yeah,
got really busy with Paul Kappa in his band, and then we were busy like 7 nights a week for about 4 or 5 years in the early
yeah,
2000s, and we went all over Europe, went to America, recorded quite a few albums and stuff, and
yeah,
then but the Merseybeat thing was gnawing at me, you know, and I knew I had to go and do something. I had to do that, and so that's when I left to form the Shakers in
the Shakers.
2005. Yeah,
Yeah, but before I ask about the Shakers, Peter Lawney actually wanted me to ask you about your acting career.
right. Yeah. Okay.
'Cause, what Peter Lawney said that you're a Liverpool legend and such a decent guy, such a great guy. He said
I've
so.
known Pete since the early '80s. Yeah.
Yeah. So you won an award, a Best Actor award. Um,
Yeah, well, yeah. It was just a little local thing, you know, just little local awards. It wasn't anything to. It wasn't a BAFTA exactly, you know.
yeah, what,
I do a
what,
lot of
what,
plays, and it was just a little sort of a northwest area award I got. It's
yeah. So what year was this? And which play?
it was. I can't remember exactly now. It's the 2000s have been a bit of a whirlwind with one thing and
Oh,
another, you know, and I was doing a lot of plays, a lot of work, band work, you know, a lot of recording, and it's all been a bit of a blur. So I can't exactly remember what it was when I got it or whatever. It was a few years ago though, early 2000s, I think, mid 2000s, or maybe
Yeah. Well,
2000s even. Yeah, I keep forgetting where we are now. It's
yeah, it's
got the ball. So I did the Joe Orton play, and I got it for that. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
but it's still like great to have. Do you still have that? Did you get like a statue or something, or like what did you get for? Do you still have
It was a
that,
little
or do you?
statuette thing, you know, the masks. It was one of them. You have to give it back after a year, you know.
Oh,
So, it was just a bit of fun. It was great though. It's nice to be recognised that you've done a good job.
yeah,
You
of
know.
course. Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
whatever I do, I tend to do it 100%. To try and give it everything I've got, whether it's acting or playing. So it's nice that it's acknowledged sometimes that you've done a good job, really.
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely, of course. Um, so in the early 2000s, you joined. Now this is really great. Again, I've heard about this band from Peter Lorne because I think he was also a member of it. It's a band called the Amazing Kappa Band, and it's
That's
billed as the best band you've never heard of, which is like,
Well, I've known Paul again since I was mentioning the Bootle Firehouse where the Chain Gang
yeah,
played, and Paul used to play there as well. We were all in the sort of group of people who all knew each other. So I've known Paul since then. After the Chain Gang, I did a couple of gigs with him, just standing things, and he needed a drummer, and I was available, so I helped him out and ended up staying for about 4.5, 5 years or something. And we just did loads of work. You know, I think Peter ended up playing some bongos on quite a few gigs after I'd left. But, uh,
yeah,
but yeah, we were just mad busy, you know. And he's still going, Paul. He's still doing well. You know, he's had various lineups, but as long as he's there, it's still the Amazing Kappa, you know.
it's so
Good on him.
yeah. And again, I believe this is like a Liverpool legend. So like,
Well, he is a bit, yeah.
so he's probably so like well known in Liverpool, but or no, apparently they also tour America as well. So they're quite
Yeah, we went to America. We toured around the Chicago area, and we recorded in Electrical Audio Studios with it's just Steve Albini's studio, who had something to do with Nirvana. I think he was a producer of Nirvana.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
into his studio and recorded an album. But it wasn't long after that. I think about a year later. By the time we brought all the tapes home and everything, and one thing and another, and and then I left for the Shakers. So
for the Shakers,
I
yeah,
think we recorded the album with the next drummer. Then there was another Tony.
yeah.
So
Well, Peter Loney just say hello from Atlanta, so he's actually joined us as
hi
well.
Peter, you okay?
So, um, so when you left the Amazing Kappa Band, that's when you formed the Shakers,
Yeah, yeah.
and the Shakers has been sort of like the Cavern's resident band since 2006. Is that
Yeah,
right?
well, because I played that a lot with Kappa, I was a known quantity in the cavern. So when I needed some gigs, I just went up and said, "Well, I've got this new band. You know, obviously we do classic cavern type stuff. So we give us
Yeah,
1 or 2 gigs, and there used to be a thing on a Sunday night called the Sound of the '60s with King Size Taylor, and a lot of the original guys used to play, and we played that sort of regularly, and it was great because I ended up backing all these guys that who I was playing in our set. You know, it was just backing the original guys, which was just brilliant. And that's where I met Kevin, who's our bass player now. Because his band used to play as well, and we were doing the authentic thing. We weren't playing a modern version, and we were doing authentically, you know. And so
yeah,
it's great. And from that, we started getting more gigs in the cabin, and eventually we had the Sunday nights given to us, you know, which we still do now. So it's
yeah,
been, it's been a great ride. It's had its ups and downs like anything, but the guys I've got in the band now, we've been together now. I said Kevin and Ian have been with me for years, on and off, throughout the
yeah.
life of the Shakers, and the last 4 years especially have just been absolutely brilliant. The band is just on fire. You know, it's really really good,
It's
best it's ever
yeah,
been. And
yeah. It's like really amazing. I mean, I know that you're playing tonight.
yeah,
o'clock at the Cavern, so
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna go and see you after.
Good.
I'll go to Liverpool today to see you before I go and see the Burandis, because the Burandis are also playing at the
Of
Cavern.
course.
So.
Yes.
But, I got this description from Discogs about the Shakers. It says the most authentic beat group out of Liverpool since the 60s. The Shakers stand out as the best in recreating the image and that exciting music from those halcyon days of 1960 to 64. So you
Yeah.
don't actually play anything after, so like the
No.
1964.
The point of it was that I was aware of a couple of groups called a London band called the Rapiers and a Scottish group called the Kaisers, and they were doing the authentic 60s thing, and I absolutely loved it. And I said, why is anybody in Liverpool doing it like that when, it's sort of the home beat in a way, which
Yeah, yeah,
isn't.
yeah.
And a lot of the groups that I'd seen playing 60s were doing. It was okay. It was going down well. It was good, but I wanted it to sound like on the records and the live gigs back then. So the whole point was to do it that way, and that's why we were slightly different to everybody else. And now it's just got that vibe, and to have the harmonies, to have the guitar, the
Yeah.
sounds, and the look and everything.
Well,
It's just it's wonderful. It's a great thing if you're into that type of music, which I am. To just
yeah.
play it, it's a buzz.
Well, this single,
Yeah.
"Hi-Fi Baby,"
Hmm.
that's an original, isn't it? Or is that?
Well, no, it's an old American beat group, obscure beat group number, which we did, and we just Mersey beated it up, if you like. We've made it sound more Liverpool.
Yeah,
On the other side, Fever is an old song that Silly used to play at the Cabin with when she used to get up with the Beatles or Rory or King Size, and she used to do that song as well as
yeah,
others. Um, so it's got some provenance, going back. But the version we do is based on a Trini Lopez version, which is very brassy, and we do a more surfy guitar type version.
yeah. Do
And
you?
My Baby's just a great rocker, and that's the
Yeah, yeah. That's
and,
really
and
good.
we've
Do
got
you play
original
it on the set
songs,
list
but we there's no call for original songs really when you're playing a lot of the venues that
or the
we
most?
play. But I
Yeah.
mean, we may record them and put some of them out later on.
Do you include this on your set list? So, because I don't
Yes, we
remember.
can do it tonight. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
both sides.
Oh, that's
We do a
brilliant.
lot of B sides as well.
A fever. You do a fever as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
We have this thing where we do the hits and then we do the B sides on certain numbers. And we like doing the B side. I think they're great.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone knows them, but we like them.
That's no, I do love this record because it's really funny because I found this at King B because I work at King B every Saturdays. So
Right?
it's like I saw this and I thought, I'm sure I've seen the Shakers before.
Mm.
It didn't actually click until I played it, and then I saw like looking at the names of the people. It's like
Yeah.
Tony O'Keefe drums. I know him. It was like, and because it made it look as if it was like an old,
Well, it's
like
actually the Cavern. Now. It's an old picture of the Cavern. And the record company, a great record company called B-Tone Records, and they've
yeah,
done things for the Cavern, reissues of blues and stuff like that. And they do a lot of reissue of rock and roll stuff. They know the stuff.
yeah,
And they come up with the cover. And I love it. I think it's great.
yeah, and it's also got this flip back sleeve,
Yeah,
which
you
is
make me
like
think about that. It's done as it used to do with the flaps coming on the outside rather than tucked in like as they do years later.
yeah,
So
oh,
again,
it's
some
amazing.
little details that maybe not everyone had noticed, but we like.
Because I mean, at King B, we always get lots of like records from the 60s. When people like sell us their collection,
Mm.
and I was like thinking that can't be like from the 60s. I mean, it's in very good condition. I mean, I know there are still lots of like records from the 60s that are brilliant condition, but I was just like thinking this is just so good because it really has the authentic. So like it says mono, and also it's got
Yeah,
that flip
absolutely,
back.
hasn't it? Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, the whole ethos of what we do is that authentic thing. You know, we try. It's not a joke, but we want it like that. But you know, we enjoy just being quirky and putting little stupid things like you know the little details in that no one will notice, but we know, and that's good enough for us, really. You know.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's great. I love that one. So, but I'd say that Carl Benson of Half Man, Half Biscuit.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, he said it's absolutely brilliant because Tony's ace. He said, great drummer and a lovely chap. That's what.
Well, he's not so
And
bad himself, you know. He's
so
played bands other than Half Man, Half Biscuit as well. You know, his bands are brilliant. I've often been a fan of the Jalapenos, for instance. You know, great rock and roll band. And
yeah,
you know, we're both fans of Status Quo as well, Frantic Four. So we've got a mutual appreciation society there as well.
oh, also Lisa Horton. She said my old mate Tony. So
Um,
that's all on
we go
Facebook.
back a long way. She used to come and watch the Chain Gang and Toy Taboo in the 80s in London. So I've known her all those years, you know.
That's brilliant. So right. Next thing I'm going to sort of like ask you now is this is like a current thing. You've written and produced a musical
Yeah,
called "This Is Mersey Beat."
that's
Can you
correct.
tell us more
Well,
about it?
yeah, well, basically, the title comes from those two albums that were recorded in the early 60s or mid 60s, about 64, I think, or maybe 63. Of all the groups in Liverpool who they sort of the ones that came in the wave after the Beatles and the hit bands, you know, and they went to the Rialto and got recorded, and they got two LPs of all the local bands, and they called it This Is Merseybeat Vol 1 and 2. And so I just thought it was a great title for the show because that is exactly what the show is. This is Merseybeat. It's what we do. But it's a little sort of there's an element of a story there, you know, taking the story of the beat as it was in Liverpool through the
Yeah,
clubs, a lot of dance halls and clubs in Liverpool, and we use the Cavern as a sort of the most well known one in the first half, where you get all the rock and roll, all the stuff like that, and it goes through to the second half, which is all of the hits. When all the groups made it and they opened the door for the British invasion, the Beatles going to America and everything. So it tells that story, but it stops at that point because that's when a lot of other groups came in from other parts of the country. But the Merseybeat thing was sort of effectively over as the powerful sort of phenomenon it was for a couple of years. So we just do that thing. Every song in the show is by a Liverpool artist. We have guests as Scylla, Vicky Jones, who's brilliant, and we have Neil Ainsbury from the Rapiers, who I mentioned before, who's also done a
yeah,
lot of work with us. He's Jerry Marsden, brilliant Jerry Marsden. Local actor Paul Codman, who's the compere, who's like sort of Bob Woolerish type character who gives a little bit of the story, follows the script, and gives the story of what's happening as we go along and the trajectory of the story.
yeah, yeah.
Keyboard player, we've had various keyboard players. We also have Tony Baker out of Dakotas, who's playing with us on the next couple of shows. So yeah, it's a great, it's you know an expanded show of what we normally do in the Cavern, but it's a bit more of a show rather than just a gig, if you know what I mean. But it's
Yeah.
been great so far. We've had, you know, get people dancing in the aisles and people loving it, you know.
But the Shakers are also part of that musical. You
They're the
also
group in the show, yeah,
perform.
yeah. We play all the songs in the show.
Yeah. But do you play as sort of like as the Shakers or just sort of like
We don't
various?
mention with the Shakers. We're just there, you know. It's about the music. So we're just a group that plays all the songs in the show, and we do songs in the show that we don't do in our normal, you know, um, gigs.
Yeah, yeah, the cabin.
And we've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
keyboards as well, which means we can do, you know, on things like Ferry Cross the Mersey, for instance, or the Jerry hits in general. There's you know, piano on it and stuff. So we have the full sounds, you know, and so that's great. That to have that authentic sort of sound like the records is brilliant, you know. And even when
yeah,
we play in the Cavern, we have Kev's son Tom comes down, you know, pretty much every week. Not always. He's not there today, but he plays mouth organ So we get him to play on some of the Beatles ones that had mouth organ on, which really lifts the whole thing, and just gives that little
Yeah,
extra, like that's like the record, it's brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
And it's
When's the next? When's the next? This is Merseybeats
we're in
festival.
St
Where is
Helens
it?
on 20th of May. It's a smaller version of the show. We've only got Scylla in that one because a very small capacity. But yeah, Citadel Theatre on 20th of May. Then we're over in York with the full show at the Joseph Brown Street Theatre in August. And in between, we're also doing, not as the show, but as the Shakers, we're doing the Grosvenor Ballroom, which is an original venue. The Beatles used to play loads. And we're doing that in June on Paul McCartney's 80th. And we're also
Oh,
doing the Jive Hive in Crosby with Vicky as well. And that one's on the 11th of June, so that they're both original venues. So you're getting the original
yeah,
sound and the original venues, which is brilliant. Great to play them while they're still here.
yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm going to ask you is, I asked Simon Finley last week about this. What is it about Liverpool that seems to be so like every person in Liverpool is like either they're in a band or they're really into music, and they're just it's such sort of like a creative
Yeah,
city.
I think it comes from the maritime thing and the travellers. A lot of people have gone to see and come back with, well, the old thing about the Cunard Yanks bringing the records back from America, which influenced people. It's things they couldn't get anywhere else. And I think, but there's a general, I think it's a Celtic thing as well. That sort of music has always been part of that, and there's a wit, obviously, for any hard city like Liverpool was and is, and I think that and sports, they're one of those things that a lot of these type of cities, port cities, tend to have, and I think
Yeah,
Liverpool in spades, and I think it always will have. Really, I think there's just too much talent within
yeah,
sports and comedians, singers, whatever. I think it's in the history. I think it's the history. I think it's maritime that's got a lot to do with it. The ships and the sea, stuff like that. I do think that's got a lot to do with
but
the
that's
influence on
really
people.
yeah, that's very interesting because, like I said earlier, that just go to Liverpool any day of the week, and there's always something. You always hear music coming from somewhere,
Mhm.
and
It's a big part of the city, and I think entertainment and sports is,
yeah,
various sorts of things strands within that. But I do think it is a sort of showbiz city in a way, and it's got a beating heart of music and creativity, and I think
yeah,
that's a good thing, and there's well, the Beatles, come on, biggest group in the world, came
yeah.
from.
Well, especially that place, Matthew Street. I mean, you just walk down Matthew Street. It's like you can actually go from one place to the other, and they
Yeah,
all have like different
I'm
music.
not a massive fan of the way it's gone, to be honest, but I mean, I remember it as it was, and it's a little bit quieter, and it still had the music there, but it wasn't quite as rowdy. There's good rowdy and there's bad rowdy, and I just think it can be a little bit too much sometimes down there. But the Cavern's great, and the Cavern venues,
Yeah,
and there's some good bands that play around the street, over the music that you can sometimes say that's not quite as creative.
well, if anyone is in Liverpool right now or near Liverpool, go to the Cavern
Yeah,
tonight, this evening, and definitely, and you'll see the Shakers there. So,
well,
um,
every Sunday, so.
yeah, because you got like three sets, you said. So you
Yeah,
start
we do
from
three sets. We do 6:15 till 7, then we do 7:15 till 8, and 8:15 till 9. Uh,
yeah,
it's usually a group on before us, various, I think McDonald's Farm, a great group from Scotland, on today. And then there's usually a solo act on after us. So that there's music on all day in the cabin, which is great.
yeah, yeah.
And I think
Um,
it'll be great atmosphere later as well, because it's a bank holiday tomorrow, so a lot of people will be out. So I think
yeah,
it'll.
that's right. um, but going back to drumming, do you have any drumming heroes?
Well, a lot of the obvious ones, Ringo, for instance, it, it's one of those things where drummers love Ringo, but no one else seems to, unless they're a fan of the Beatles, because they think he's not very good, but he's brilliant. And
I think it's really cool. Yeah.
you know, speak to any drummer, and he influenced more famous drummers than a lot of other guys. And I love watching people like Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa. You know, just for the technique and the way I couldn't play like that, but they just blow me away. You know. But I like the
Yeah.
rock and roll drummers, you know, and even the rock drummers like John Bonham or Phil Rudd from AC/DC, John Codlin. Well, I mean, it's the thing with me. I like a backbeat. I like it solid and simple. And so when I first listened to drummers, it was those type of drummers like the Big Figure from Dr. Feelgood, or you know, even Dave Mount from Mud. Not, he played a solid backbeat. He weren't flashy. So that's the type
Yeah.
of drummer I like, and that's the type of drummer I am. But you know, there's room for people like Keith Moon and you know, people like that, a bit more flashy, a bit more flamboyant. But
Yeah.
it's not my style.
Do you twirl? Do you do all
I do
these
lots
sort
of
of
drumming. I'm a showman in that respect. You know, I
Yeah.
believe being a visual drummer, but it doesn't mean you know you have to play flamboyantly. It's my job to keep the beat
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and keep that backbeat going, and that's what drives Mersey beats. It's the beat. You know, when
Yeah.
you lose the beat, you start messing around too much. You're going to lose the feel of the thing. So I like to play like those drummers played at the time. People like Chris Curtis and Freddie Marsden. You know, other than Ringo, they were great little swing
Yeah.
drummers. You know, and I loved their style. And I always pay sort of homage to them in the show. You know, do little moves of theirs or little things that they used to do to keep it there. And if you don't
Yeah.
know, it doesn't matter. But if you do know, you know it's there. You know,
Well, Trevor said that Ringo is fantastic. He's such an original drummer.
he
But
is. Yeah.
you mentioned before to me that you actually played the part of Pete Best.
That's right.
It
Yeah.
was
It was
so
90s. It was a play on the Everyman. It was called Best, and it was written by Fred Lawless, who's one of our big comedy writers who did a lot of stuff at the Royal Court. And it was a joke thing on the premise of the Beatles' history, whereby when it got to the point where they sacked Pete, it's true up to that point, but when they sack Pete, Pete becomes the big worldwide pop star, and the Beatles go down the pan. And that's the thing. So everything in the Beatles' history is turned on its head, and it's a comedy, obviously.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was just brilliant, you know. It was really good fun to do, and that's where I met Ian, who's one of our rhythm guitarist and singer in the Shakers now, who's done a lot of work with us as Steps over the years. But he was Paul McCartney in that show, and
okay.
Pete Best. So in the Shakers, you've got Paul McCartney and Pete Best.
And Pete Best, yeah. I've met Pete Best. He's actually really
Yeah,
nice.
I
And
have, yeah, I know his brother Rogue, lovely guys, you know, brilliant, you know. But I mean,
yeah,
you know, it's the breaks, the way the business went at the time, and it's one of those. It's down to history, isn't it? Ringo was the drummer in the Beatles in the Fab Four, and he was a great drummer.
yeah, yeah,
He was great when he was in Hamburg with the Beatles. Doug Pete was great. He had the atom beat pounding away, giving them that energy, and that's what they needed at the time. So all
yeah.
respect to him.
I wonder if it's true though that because he was too gorgeous, so like the fans are actually going for
Well,
it.
yeah, he was a good-looking chap.
Yeah, he was really good looking. Yeah, yeah. So, John Kidd's got a question. He said, "Hi Tony, just a couple of questions about the old days.
Yeah.
Did you ever see any bands in Eric's? Oh, it's because you two. And also, did you ever meet my favorite all-time drummer, Pete DeFreitas from the Bunnymen?
It's a no on both counts there. And as I said before, I couldn't get into Eric's. It was too young. They wouldn't let me in because I was quite baby faced as a teenager. So I looked at 13 when I was 17. But no, I never saw Pete. I never saw the Bunnymen at the time. Even though I liked them, I've got the LPs and all that. For some reason, I missed them, so I never saw Pete. Sadly, great drummer, you know. And the Bunnymen, brilliant bands at the time. You know, their early albums are really something else, you know, atmospheric and everything brilliant. As are the
Yeah.
teardrops were, all the guys at the time. I loved all that stuff.
What was your most favorite band during that era? Because like in the Philippines, that's actually the biggest. so like musical thing, what we call new wave. We've got Echo and the Bunnyman, the Wild Swans, the Lotus Eaters.
Yeah.
Um, so, what was your most favorite sort of like band from that time in the
I
80s?
didn't have a favourite band as such. I liked them all, and I thought, they had records that, sometimes the Teardrops have a record, that record's brilliant, and then the Bunnymen would do one, or like that record they've done. So I had favourite records, but not necessarily a favourite band. I liked them all for different reasons.
Yeah,
Great songs and some great records made at the time, and some never really broke as big as they should have done, but some of them were. And I think a lot of the groups at the time, not just the ones that made, there were some of them that were around on the scene that I was, when I was in the scene, and there was some amazing. The thing about the groups then with Liverpool, it was such an imaginative time as well, the early 80s, and that's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that's overlooked a little bit. Um, do you imagine all the bands were different? You couldn't say all the bands sounded alike. They
Yeah,
were all
that's true.
different.
Yeah,
And that's what I mean. You couldn't have a favourite because there were just so many different types
the
of
different ones.
music.
Yeah,
But it was all under the umbrella of like the Eric sort of new wave thing. But there was a hell of a lot of good stuff going on there. That still stands up today, and that's something to be proud of as a city as well.
yeah. Well, nowadays, I mean, there's still, the Liverpool is still producing quite a lot of so like amazing bands, like new bands, like like the Coral and
Yeah,
like the young ones that I see the Peach Fuzz and all these bands that I like at the moment.
right.
Um, yeah, but you all these years that you've been playing so like drums, have you ever had any drumming disaster or so like an accident or so when you're playing?
I'm going to embarrass myself and say now that one that stands out was with the Chain Gang. Occasionally, when towards the end of the gig, when it's all been very rock and roll and very punk and everything, and we get into it, I'd do a Keith Moon and kick over my kit. The kit would go everywhere. I remember that happening one day, and destroyed the stage, walked off, and we got an encore. So
Oh,
I built my kit back up again quite sheepishly, put everything back together again before I could play again. I was like, oh god.
oh no! So was it not planned? You didn't know. You
Oh,
didn't know
it
that
was
you
just
were
like
gonna
that.
do.
Rock and roll at the end, knock everything
Yeah.
out. Had to come in before we could do the encore, which is youth,
Well,
enthusiasm of youth.
that's really funny. But did it take you a long time to put it back all together again? So like,
Yeah, I did it pretty quick. I was that embarrassed. I just got it done as quick as possible. Got back on it. So
well, before I ask you about, because I know that you have to prepare to sort of like go to the cavern. So before I ask you the last question that I always ask the guests, um, Chris Sharrock plays at the cavern
he
every
done.
Friday and Saturday. So like, but his band is actually so like more of a tribute band, so like the Beatles tribute.
That's right.
And
Cannibal Beatles. Yeah.
yeah, and he sort of like has this Ringo sort of like persona. Have you ever sort of like seen them play? Have you been
Well,
to see?
yeah. I mean, I know Chris. I've known him since he was a kid, really, with the ICs and what have you. And I've actually I've stood in for him with the Cavern Club Beatles wearing his wig. It's not a big wig. Let's be honest. It's I don't suit wigs. So no, he's a great drummer, Chris. And he loves Ringo, and he does a great Ringo, and that's the thing. It keeps him busy when he's not on the road with Noel Gallagher or whoever he's playing with this week. He's done really well for himself. He's a good lad.
Yeah,
Chris. No one to say. I've known him for years, so we get on really well.
because I still can't believe that it was so like he does things like that. Because I remember when Ian McNabb told me about it. Because I've always wanted to meet Chris Sharrock.
Yeah,
Um, but Ian McNabb said to me, because I don't think they'll ever play together as the Icicle Works. But he said the best the best chance for you to meet Chris Sharrock is go to the Cavern on the Friday or Saturday, and he'll be playing there as Ringo, complete
That's
with
right.
wig, and the Ringo knows it. I was all like thinking he's gonna be just pulling my leg away. I don't think.
No, no, that's what he does. It's a handy little gig for him. He lives over the water, and he said it's great. Just come in, just do your bit, and get paid, and go home. Not like being on tour around the world where you're back at a hotel every night or whatever. So I know he loves doing it, and it's like me, you get to a point where you just want to play. And, it's not necessarily about getting famous or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. Although he plays with big names, it's the joy of playing. We're drummers. We have to play with a group. We can't play on our own. So where a lot of you know musicians these days can play solo and got a lot of solo gigs and make a few bob for themselves. We need groups. We need people to play with, and we can't play without that.
without
And
yeah, yeah.
I love the creativity of, even you're playing covers, doing it your own way, or just recreating something. I think it's a great thing, and I think Chris, with him as well, it's just about the camaraderie of playing in a group, and not worrying about anything else. Just the physical act of drumming is what we enjoy doing, but we need other people to do it, and so you, you
Well,
get an opportunity, you do it.
yeah, I'm definitely good doing. So gonna go there on a Friday or Saturday and see him.
Oh, mate, see him afterwards, yeah, yeah, yeah. Do an after the drummer with him.
I'd really like to see like Chris Sharrock and the Ringo
Oh yeah.
like thing. But anyways, yeah. So this is my last question now for you. Because do you have any advice for like aspiring drummers out there?
I would say just get out and play as soon as you can. When I used to teach drums at the Cavern Rock School, and I always used to teach them how to play just simple beats that they could go out and play with people, because you can spend too long learning all the technicalities of it, and it'll take you years. Go out and play with people. Just get used to playing with. Like I just said to you, drummers need to play with people. The quicker you can do that, and preferably if it's musicians who are better than you will learn a hell of a lot quicker than sitting in your bedroom. And so get out and play with people, jam with people. It doesn't matter if you're not very good, you will learn, but the quickest thing to being good is to learn to play with people, because that's what drummers should be doing, playing with people. You don't play for yourself, you play with people. And a lot of drummers don't really get that. I just go and play whatever I want. No, you play with the band, you play the song. Like Ringo, he plays for the song, and that's what you should do. You should always have it. That doesn't mean you can't have any of your own personality in there. I think you can.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think play with people. Just go out and play with people and get used to that vibe of playing with somebody rather than just on your own practicing. That's the best advice I can give to anyone, really.
That's very interesting. That was really good. Yeah, yeah. Well, Peter said that nothing harder than playing with Paul Kappa. So,
I lost a stone and a half playing with Paul. It's a physical job, but no, I enjoyed it. It was great. We were a great band, and I enjoyed the time I was with him. And I still see him now and again. We get on fine. I've stood in with him a few times. I've done his birthday parties where he had all the different lineups playing with him. And still enjoy listening to the records we did and stuff. And it was a good time. It was busy, but I say other interests came in, and I needed to play something a bit more what was in my heart, and that's what the Shakers are.
yeah, yeah. Oh well, thank you so much, Tony. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's all the things that you've said. I mean, it's so like really interesting because I've not heard these things before.
No, well, I don't. It's one of again, when you're a drummer, you can tell by the photos. You're hardly ever on photos, and you're always at the back. No one
Yeah,
ever no one goes to the lead singer and goes, "Oh, what's happening?" And you can walk past them. No one takes a blind bit of notice. So unless someone like yourself asks questions, you're not going to know.
yeah, that's it. Well, do you have any like final words to our people, the friends who've joined us, and maybe invite them to the cabin this evening or
Yeah,
something?
come and see Jacobs on the Cavern. Come and see This Is Mersey Beat on the theatre, and buy our record, Beat On Records. get it done.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much once again, and I'll see you later this evening.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks
Oh,
very much. Bye
all
bye.
right. Well, yeah. See you later. Bye, Tony.
Bye bye.
Bye. Oh my God, thank you so much for joining us live. That's really great. And I'm so looking forward to going to Liverpool again because I mean I love Manchester, but I also love Liverpool and all these, so like I love Glasgow as well. But anyways, yeah, thank you so much. And if you're anywhere in Liverpool or near Liverpool, then do go to the Cavern this evening and see the Shakers, and also enjoy the rest of your Easter Sunday. And once again, keep an eye out for next week's guest announcement post. It's not he's not from Liverpool this time, because I know I've been so like featuring drummers from Liverpool, but next week it's he's not from Liverpool. Right, so like I always say, love music, love life, and love drummers, because they're just so amazing and they're so cool. So hope to see you again next week. Take care always. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.